you can't talk about Indonesia today without talking about the G20. And I just recall, and when the Ukraine-Russian hostilities broke out, we all thought, oh, it was bad luck for Indonesia because it would ruin the G20. In the event, it turned out quite differently for two reasons. One, of course, I think the discussions went very well at G20, and they came up with a statement, and so the meeting itself was a success rather than a disaster, as many feared. But equally important, because of the tensions, this G20 got more global media attention than perhaps all the other G20s combined, and every time it was mentioned Indonesia. And so people would say, Indonesia, Indonesia, what about it? And if you look at Indonesia today and over the COVID era, so to speak, its economy has formed very well. So all of a sudden people say, oh, Indonesia, we better give it another look. So I think for two reasons: one, a very successful outcome for all participants, and a very successful performance by Indonesia. President Jokowi, who we all know had avoided international affairs for the first 7 years as much as he could, really showed his chops. I think he did a wonderful job and gained a lot of prestige, both for himself and for Indonesia. But what does it all mean? We are in the middle of a growing superpower conflict, and there's no doubt about that. And I just want to mention an article that was written by Gideon Rahman, a very good an analyst in the Financial Times. And he really got Indonesia right. For someone who's not an expert, that's very good. He says, in trying to stay neutral in an emerging superpower conflict, Indonesia is reaching back to an older tradition. It played a key role in the foundation of the non-aligned movement and the Bandung Conference in 1955, and the underlying instinct of Indonesia and many other non-Western nations that will assemble in Bali remains the same: to navigate the tensions between superpowers and avoid signing up to either camp. As a leader, Widodo has some similarities to Da Silva in Brazil. Both Indonesian and Brazilian leaders have risen from humble origins and are proud of their connections with ordinary people. Both want good relations with the US while retaining an innate skepticism about American motives grounded in their own country's histories. So you could change those motives to Western motives. And this is one reason why we won't see stark alignment with Western goals. I'm looking at it now from the American point of view because I'm sitting in Washington, D.C. And so I think we in the U.S. often forget the histories and the narratives of the middle powers, as they've come to be called, and really showed their stuff here. But in any case, we come to Indonesia today with many positives.
Do you believe that the G20 has given an overall much bigger exposure to Indonesia? And in terms of now putting Indonesia on the center stage, how do you see that whole thing play out?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. As I think I said in my opening remarks, the global media exposure has been fantastic, and to have the conference go well, and to have people curious about Indonesia, and at a time Indonesia is doing quite well economically, I think it's just been a tremendous plus. And I think we can build on that. I think I wasn't, of course, at the G20 or B20 meetings in Bali, but a lot of my friends were, and the mood at the B20 meetings was fantastic. Thailand did a wonderful job. The local chamber, the foreign chambers of commerce did a wonderful job. AmCham, EuroCham, AusCham. They did really, I got a lot of positive feedback. And so I think there'll be some very good things to come out of this. And certainly the exposure has been tremendously positive. And so all credit, of course, the president, but all his staff did a remarkable job.
So any takeaways into going into the chairmanship of ASEAN? Because that's what's coming up next for Indonesia.
Well, let's hope Indonesia builds on its momentum. Now, ASEAN has a couple of very difficult challenges, as we know, particularly the Myanmar situation is very, very difficult. There just doesn't seem to be any room for or any willingness on the part of the current government in Myanmar to negotiate the situation. So that's going to be a challenge, but I hope that both Indonesia's experience in dealing with an equally difficult problem in G20 and the credibility it's gained as a neutral player that both sides can feel some confidence in will continue into the ASEAN situation and make it an effective year for ASEAN under Indonesian leadership. So I'm reasonably optimistic, recognizing that it's a very, very difficult challenge.